Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Split Second, and tonight we have with us the wonderful Shark.
Hello, how do you do, good sir?
And he'll be talking about the deck he calls Country Classical. Now, would you like to walk us through it?
Sure. Really, the main point of this deck is to get as much power into a single friend as possible, and just like to get as much power into as few friends as possible. I should actually say. I basically don't want to have a whole bunch of friends at one problem in order to either solve it or whatever.
Okay, now that seems a lot similar to a deck called Hats, where you play Rarity and you put a whole bunch of different hats on her, giving the character +2 power to solve for that one turn. How does this differ from that?
E This differs from it by the power not being permanent, meaning that if my opponent's not solving the problem right away, like he can solve it next turn and he wants to get into a face-off, he won't be able to because on their turn, I'm no longer solving that problem.
Again, that's similar to the Hats deck. So how does this differ from putting a whole bunch of resources onto a particular friend? How do you get the power from one to another?
I use Vital stands in order to give Mod or any other character's power to somebody else.
Oh, I see. So you use Maud's, Maud's ability to gain power from having different types in the discard pile, and you use Vital stands on that because
Yes.
it doesn't specify friend, it specifies character.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
I use Vital Send tap I use Vital Send tap Mod tap it and then give its power to somebody else.
All right. So if that's the case, why would you want something like Golden Harvest, or even better, Applejack, Plant Leader?
Um, what do you mean exactly?
Well, if you wanted to give friends a lot more power, particularly if you want to solve an opponent's problem sooner, you might want to stick in Applejack Barnraiser, which has the ability to exhaust itself and give its power to another friend.
Right.
Instead
Golden
you've got
Harvest I
Plant
like.
Leader and Golden
Uh,
Harvest.
the reason I like Golden Harvest is simply that it's cheap. It's cheap to get out, and I can get it out without having to worry about its cost, without worrying about its color requirements. And as well, I could potentially give a character two power if I have to, without having to waste any more power.
But that goes against Applejack, which has a cost of 3 and has a requirement of 2, and its power is
Oh,
only
the reason
2.
I run Applejack is actually because Applejack is one of the characters I would give the power to in order to solve a problem, in order to win face-offs, basically.
So you'd win the face-off, which would
In
then
order
force
to
your opponent to discard a card at random.
exactly, exactly.
Well, that makes sense. And you've got Big Mac Biggest Brother with a power of 4, but supportive 2. Now, you've just said that essentially you want
Yes,
to leave your uh, main character at home and use it to pump everyone else. So why would you have
yes.
Biggest Brother there?
Because it's just another character I could potentially like. If I have two Vital Sands out, I could say, okay, I will tap one Vital Sand, tap Mod, give second power to a friend. Tap another, tap Big Mac, give that power as well.
All right.
Or no, sorry, it's while it's at a problem with your main character. If I have to, I'll use its supportive two. Normally, I don't, and I'll
But
just like I'll have them. Huh?
but other than that, I suppose it's because it's a 4 power friend that you can just exhaust.
Yeah, it's a four power, four cost friend. I could send it to a problem. It covers most stuff, and or I can keep it back and give its power to somebody else.
Okay. Now, probably the most interesting thing, or that I think is the most interesting thing in the deck, is you've got Octavia Sweet Symphony.
Ah, the crunk of the deck. Um, the
The
reason I
crunk of the
have
deck.
her, Not crunk. What's the right word? Not
Crux.
crunk.
Crux.
Crutch.
Crux.
Crux
Crux.
of yeah, the crux of the deck. I'm sorry.
No, it's alright.
The crux
I was
of the
just
deck.
imagining someone pulling a lever.
The crux of the deck is Octavia Sweet Symphony. It is basically the ideal card that I want to give every single point of power to. And this is simply because if I solve my opponent's problem if I can confront the opponent's problem while they have more friends there, I can start gaining extra action points.
So basically, what you're telling me is the point of the deck is to exhaust your main character or high-powered friends to give Octavia the power while she's at the opponent's problem, meaning she only has one. You've only got one friend there, while your opponent needs roughly about two or more to confront.
Yeah. That's
Which
about it. Like
which means that you can
I want to be
constantly
able to
solve it
confront a
and then
problem just with
exhaust to score an
Octavia.
additional point.
Exactly. Like I really don't care about winning face-offs with this deck. That's not the point of this deck unless I have Applejack out. That's not the entire point of this deck. The point of this deck is to get Octavia out and start solving problems, start confronting problems and gaining all my action points.
So essentially being a slow grind.
Yes.
Now, that's quite interesting. So, looking at some of the events, you've got your Rock Solid faction to help fix your color, just in case you can't, just so you can try and get Octavia out. But you've got Not on
Yes.
the List and Creme de la Creme.
Creme de la creme is if I have to win a face-off, I can potentially use creme de la creme in order to. Actually, no, strike that. There's no reason for me to run a creme de la creme. I'm probably taking it out later on, but creme de la
Editing
creme
your
was
deck
in
as we
there
go.
before. Yeah, pretty much. So ignoring creme de la creme. Non the list is basically there to deal with my opponent's problems, and that's about it.
So you mean getting rid of Rarity Truly Outrageous or something like that, just to hinder
Yeah,
your opponent a
exactly.
bit.
Yeah, or I can say, okay, you have only one orange friend there, and you need like three, but you don't have three to actually put there, and that's like your only orange friend. Okay, not on the list. Banish that orange friend.
Now, you've also got Duck and Cover, which I think is an interesting card, which is the ability to ignore your flip and flip a new card. So, do you do that to
Yeah,
sort of make
like
up for a low flip ratio, or?
yeah, sort of. Yeah, I guess you can say that that I do that, even though I really again I don't really solve. I don't really get try. I try to avoid face-offs with this deck normally
But it,
because I can't activate Vittle stands during my turn. But if I have to, I have all my orange power that I can just like stack onto one problem if I have to. I don't want to have to, but if I have to, I can do that.
well, if that's the case, then why would you have cards like Combat Hat in the deck, or even Chic Beret, if you don't want it to have permanent power?
Um, Well, no, no. I don't mind it having permanent power. I prefer it not having permanent power and not being able to solve the problem right away. But I don't mind it doing that. And only that, I really have it because I can move it to another friend if I have to.
So,
I
essen-
can move it to another friend.
so essentially using that pay one to move to another friend in order to buff it up just that extra
And
one, so you're solving the problem.
yeah, and not only that, I can say give it to Big Mac Biggest Brother, and now he is 5 power, and I can give that 5 power to somebody else.
I see. So then you just attach it onto someone with a high power and keep exhausting them, so that extra power would then go to someone else.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of doing it.
And then the combat hat is, well, it's used to pretty much say, by the way, you're not moving friends here. Or at least you're gonna have to pay extra to do that.
Which seems sort of counterintuitive, especially since you want more friends there because of Octavia.
Well, no, not only that, but once they have their friends there, if I destroy one, I don't want them moving a friend there that could potentially solve the problem again.
So you want to try and use it to hinder when you feel it needs to be, when your opponent needs to be hindered?
Yeah. It's basically, I can say, put on Octavia. Octavia is now Octavia's virtuoso.
Yes.
And that's about it. That's all. That's one of the only reasons I actually even play Combat Has is to hinder my opponent from moving their friends there.
R-
Or I can say put it on a friend that's at another problem, at the other problem that Octavia is not at, so that my opponent might be compelled to go to the problem that Octavia is at.
So there's less incentive to solve your problem for them than it is to solve their own problem.
Yeah.
I see.
So
Use it
basically,
as a
the thing
deterrent.
with Octavia is even if they don't have that power there, I could say, okay, I won't. I'm still confronting. I still get points. If you're gonna be there, though, I now get double points. So yay.
I see. Now you got a number of troublemakers here. You've got Wild Manticore, Yellow Parasprite, and Diamond Dog, which I feel are all pretty much self-explanatory. But you've got
Yeah.
Flam, which I think is probably the most interesting choice, since when the Premier decks came out with Rainbow Dash and all them, that was one of the first cards that everyone tossed away. So to see it coming back in
Um.
a properly constructed deck is interesting.
It's pretty much to say it's pretty much to hinder my opponent from trying to solve the problem as well. And it's using it so this way they have to exhaust a problem, one of their characters there, so they could potentially not solve the problem even if they defeat Flan. So
Well,
I
that
honestly think that Flam is one of the more useful troublemakers.
well, it sort of feels a bit. I mean, if you wanted something similar, wouldn't most people would usually go for someone like Prince Blue Blood, or even if they have the money or have the card, Queen Chrysalis? But having Flam is just because
I
that
don't.
those extra 2 points or those 2 points that from beating Flam kind of hurt you.
Sort of. Remember, I'm this deck is gaining points rather fast because I'm not only gaining 1 point, I'm gaining two, basically gaining two each turn.
So you're hoping that because of that ramp, they'll try and focus on the problem that Octavia is at, rather than worry about their own.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you said, Wild Manticore, Yellow Parasprite, and Diamond Dogs, all self-explanatory. Diamond Dogs is extremely good because if they defeat it, you gain 2 action points. If even if they do defeat it, they only gain 1 point of it, and you still come out on top. It's basically used to make people not want to go to your problem. Yellow Parasprite is Yellow Parasprite. Wild Manticore is Wild Manticore.
Yeah, Wild Manticore is probably one of the biggest deterrents in the game, I reckon. Well, that's not a villain. And Yellow Parasprite, well, everyone has trouble with Yellow Parasprite. Even those that are running
Yeah. Oh wow, you're
the
using a little
Applejack
bit
element of
distorted.
honesty still find Yellow Parasprite to be quite annoying.
Well, no, that's one deck that I thought really liked Yellow Parasprite.
Yes, but if you don't have it in hand, then it can be quite frustrating and annoying.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how it could be annoying.
Right.
Um,
So that
Onto the
seems
problems
that
then.
seems like a pretty decent deck.
Onto the
You
problem deck then.
might as well move on to the secondary deck, the problem deck, which, well, I would say is interesting, but I mean, you've got Trade Dispute, which makes sense now that you've explained Octavia,
Yeah,
because
I don't. Yeah,
that makes sense, but because you're going to have about 2 friends there, and then they're going to have 3, and then that's it, because it works well with Octavia.
yeah,
Because your
yeah. Because I
opponent's
only
always
need
going to
one
have.
friend there in order to solve the problem. They need 2 or 3 friends there to solve the
Well, no,
problem.
you actually need 2 because it's your problem, so you're going to need 2 white and 2 orange.
Oh yeah, you're right. But getting 2 white and 2 orange, it's not that hard to do with this deck. With how
No,
much entry I have, it's not that hard to do with this deck at
no,
all.
it's not that hard. But all you need to do is have Octavia and something else there. then your opponent's going to have about 2 or 3. And then as soon as they hit 3, then you start exhausting Octavia to gain that extra point.
Yeah.
And social obligations, I don't know anyone who runs white and doesn't run social obligations. It's
Yeah,
such
it's
an
a
awesome
pretty
card.
darn good. The only problem is, again, with this deck, it doesn't really use its main character, and it doesn't normally win a face-off.
No, but this is in general, so it doesn't matter where the main character is, so long as you win a face-off with the main character.
No, when this card wins a face-off involving when this card's oh, okay, I get it. So basically, if they try to do well, no, that wouldn't work either, would it? No, the character would have to be here.
No, it wouldn't. As long as this card's owner
When
wins a
this card's
face-off
owner
involving
wins
their
a
main
face-off
character.
involving their main character.
Yep, it doesn't say here.
How?
Because it doesn't have the keyword here, it doesn't specify at that
Oh,
problem.
so I can have it at my opponent's problem.
Indeed. And if you win the face-off there,
Okay.
then you exhaust your main character and you score an additional point.
And the other and social obligations is still there.
Yep.
Any other cards that you find
Well,
interesting?
I think I Can Fix It is a very interesting one that you've got there. When the player wins a
Where's
face-off
I
here
Can
by
Fix It?
exactly 1 power, that player scores an additional point. I can see you overcoming a whole bunch of problems and your opponents and all that, but not by exactly 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like
It seems
I
you'd have
run
to
it
take a
'cause I
calculated risk.
yeah, that's the thing. Like I could potentially get it, and there's a good chance I can get it because my deck has a lot of planned power, which due to thanks to Viddle I know how much power our friend is gonna have.
Right, but
So
if you're playing
yeah,
against yellow, you don't exactly know what's going to happen. Same with blue. Because they can always just put more
yeah,
friends down or crit a cavalry or yay.
yeah, that's true.
Now, Kitchen au Flambe, I personally like this card. I think this is a fun card.
The first player to confront this problem may take a friend with 1 power from their discard pile and put it into their hand. The funny thing is, I only have 1 friend that has 1 power.
And that's actually why I think it's one of the most interesting cards in this deck. Because you have,
It's such a silly card.
well, you've only got one power friend in the entire deck, and yet you've got this card. So it kind of feels like you're helping your opponent more than you're helping yourself.
Well, no, I could confront it. I could confront it myself if I have to. Um,
But you don't get any
I
bonus from
might
it.
change that out later on, though.
All right, and then you've got Apple Bucking Day,
Apple
which is
Bucking Day, which
it's a good
reason
card.
for having it because
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's pretty much
it's a
self-explanatory.
good card.
Raises Barn.
Then I have, yeah, there's a good reason why I run that. It's because my orange friends are my power, and now they can't be dismissed. So F you, Pinkie Pie.
All right, and finally we've got Hungry
And
Caterpillars. Now this card I actually think is intriguing because it works in about 50% of the orange decks, and it doesn't in the other 50%.
I pretty much do it for hand advantage because remember, this deck needs cards in the graveyard to really do anything. So me having to discard a card is a moot point because this deck needs to discard stuff.
Because of the wonderful Maud's ability.
Yes. So the earlier I can get Hungry Caterpillars out, the better.
Yep.
And even then, once I get like my normal set out, which is more likely than not Octavia, Sapphire Shores, possibly Big Mac, and Steamroller, I would say are my normal cards. And then I don't play any more friends unless they kill them.
I see. So you have a big hand the entire time, and you just play friends,
pretty much,
events, and
yeah.
resources when you absolutely must.
Yes. So me having to discard a card at any point in the game, it doesn't really hurt me, and if it's early enough, it actually helps me.
All
I
right.
honestly think every mod deck should run this.
I as I said, it works in about 50% of the orange deck, so I'm pretty sure that Maud and this go hand in hand. But it's interesting that you
Yeah.
don't have any other discards, really. Like, there's no Nightmare Moon or anything like that.
I don't honestly like Nightmare Moon, just to be honest. I don't
You
like the
know,
card. I
because
think it's kind
honesty
of just
and
an
orange go
overplayed
hand in
card.
hand.
Yeah. uh,
So you're not.
yeah, like, yeah, I don't, huh?
So you're not running Nightmare Moon because you feel it doesn't work in this deck, or because you're just not a big fan of the card in general.
I'm just not a big fan of the card in general.
Okay. Well, there's something to be said for a personal touch.
Yeah.
Well, I feel that
Anything
every deck
else?
should have a personal touch to it, and you've chosen to add Golden Harvest because you like her, and you've chosen not to have Nightmare Moon because you personally don't like it. And I think
Yes.
that's very
Um,
respectable.
it's the same thing as Hoity Toity. I shouldn't run Hoity Toity.
Oh
It's
well,
not a
actually,
good card.
there's no reason not to run Hoity Toity, especially with the inspired ability.
Yeah, I really like the inspired ability. Funny story. All right. I think it's story time.
Oh dear.
When I first started getting into this game, my first deck was a pink white inspire deck, and it was broken like to all living hell. It went undefeated until the next set came out.
Well,
So yeah, inspired is an insane ability. I
it
absolutely love
really
it.
is an insane
It comes from
ability.
my love of also it comes from my love of Scry from Magic the Gathering. It's such a good ability, especially when I can do it to my opponent's deck. It's like all the yes.
Yeah, I must admit, Reverse Scry is quite good, especially from those of us who have come from Magic, where we go, okay, we get to try and plan out our next few moves. With Inspired, we get to plan out the opponent's next few moves.
We're like, in any other game, that is broken. That is that is knowledge you're not supposed to have, but you do. In any other game, an ability like that would be considered broken.
Anyway, I think that's just about it. We've talked a bit about your main character, mainly with her flip ability, which is
Yeah.
to gain +1 for every single card, every single different type of card in the discard pile. We've gone through
The
your
highest you can
friends,
get is 7.
at the moment anyway.
Are they releasing another card type?
We don't know. That's for future reference. We've
If they
also
are, I'm going to put it in.
got. I think most mod players would be putting it in. All right, that looks like a fairly interesting deck, and definitely one I reckon a few people should try out just for something different.
I know, it's not going to win you. All right, I'm just going to say this now. It's not going to win you any tournaments at all.
Oh, it might.
It is a fun deck. Oh, yeah, it could. I'm not saying it can't. It could, but chances are it won't. It's a fun deck. It's a very fun deck to play against and to actually play because you're basically have if you're an offensive player, this deck is not really that offensive. It's a really defensive deck until you get out everything you need and just start using Little Stands, buffing up Octavia or buffing up Applejack or something like that.
All right, there you have it. Thank you very much for joining us, Shark.
Bye.
All right, and I'll catch you on the flip side.